Hi everyone, today I wanted to talk about the breath of life, or we could also call it the breath of health or recovery. Stay tuned. Breath and breathing is something that's key for health and well-being, and yet it probably is the thing that we take for granted the most. We do it, and do we really pay attention to it? I would say probably not until we are forced to, or have to, or maybe choose to. But what impact is breath having on our health when we're not paying attention to it? As I've gone through my own journey with breath and breathing, that's definitely a question that's been on my mind. And when I look at people on their own health journey, I definitely see that integration of breath work. For some healthcare practitioners, that's the main modality that they use in treatment, is a focus on breath and breath work. That's not the case for me. I'm more of a talk therapist, but I really enjoy that complementary integration of other tools and strategies that other healthcare providers as well as people are finding for self-management. So when we think about breath, how come it is so important for mental health and mood? Well, I think physiologically there's a lot of importance to breath. It can help us to regulate so many of our systems and provide that healthy oxidization to the places that need it the most. My expertise in the physiological aspect of breath does not go beyond that. I would encourage you to seek out other resources and videos and talk to your healthcare providers to maybe learn more about the importance of breath for our physical health. From a mental health perspective, breath can play a number of roles. For one, and probably the biggest one, it can really help to regulate us. When we are in states of panic or crisis or worry, what tends to happen is that our breathing becomes much more shallow. So rather than breathing from that low diaphragm, those nice, deep, regular breaths that are ideal for health, instead people start to have very short, choppy, almost like they're panting kinds of breaths. May not be quite that obvious, but when we really are paying attention to what's happening, when we're in a state of fear, which often impacts us up here, or stress, which often impacts us up here, people will definitely start to notice once they tune in that their breathing has changed. Funny how talking about breath brought up some spasms in my throat. I found that really interesting, so had to cut away, had to come back. I find that quite funny that there's so much impact that breath has, and once we start to tune into it, it's always interesting what we notice starting to come up. So as people learn to use different tools to help regulate their breath, that can help in those moments of panic, anxiety, worry, fear, and crisis. Because interesting, the feedback loop between our breath and our brain and our response is a very interesting one. So if our breathing starts to become more hurried, more superficial at that chest level, kind of more panting rather than those deep breaths, that sends a message to our brain that there's a crisis, there's panic, there's worry, there's fear, and then we start to feel that worry, that crisis, that panic, that fear. And that loop can get intersected at any point. So we might actually be feeling some worry, some crisis, some fear, some panic, and then that cycle starts of the breath being impacted and our awareness of that. So what's interesting is that we can actually interfere with that cycle at any point. So that's where some people choose cognitive behavioral therapy to interfere more at the thinking level. So to intervene by providing messages of safety and reassurance. Whereas other people will also, or instead, choose to look at the physiological level of breath and finding techniques that help to regulate breath. I have done some videos in the past around the importance of breath and some breathwork exercises, so you may want to check those out, and I will link to those in the comments section. I won't be doing any of those today. This is more for your awareness to maybe take some interest in exploring other tools and resources that might work for you. For some people, this breath work can involve seeing a practitioner who particularly specializes in breath work. It might also involve pursuing things like meditation or even a yoga practice, which has a breath work component to it. All of these can help to build some strength and some awareness and some tools when it comes to the world of breath. What else can breath help us with from a mental health perspective? I would say another main thing that it can help with, in addition to self-regulation, is mindfulness and presence. Our breath is something that can help to really connect us and hone us in on this present moment, this second, rather than allowing our brains to lose us in the future or the past. And what an easy thing for our brains to do. Our brains like to wander and to go in those directions very actively, whereas breath can really help us to just recenter in the present. And when we're in the present, that can really help us to connect to acceptance of what's going on. It can also help us connect to trust and faith in the process, rather than being in that fear or that sadness, shame, depressed state about what might have already happened in the past. So breath is such a powerful tool for mental health and well-being. It can help to ground us. It can help us to deal with self-regulation and emotional regulation. And it can also help us with mindfulness and presence. There probably are many, many other benefits to breath work as well, including those physiological benefits, and I'm sure other ones that maybe I haven't even encountered or thought of. If you have any further ideas or experience with the benefits that breath work has had in your life and your health and your recovery, I would love to hear it. Please comment in the comments below. And in future, we'll continue to explore different topics related to addiction and mental health. Thanks for tuning in, and I wish you well in your journey of health and also your journey with breath. Mine is ongoing, and I wish you the same. Take care.